Mercedes just shocked Formula One, and now the FIA is investigating. In Japan, they didn't just take pole position. They locked the entire front row, with a gap of almost 3/10 between their own drivers. That alone is rare. But here's the part that's raising serious questions. Antonelli didn't just beat the field. He was fastest in every single sector. A perfect lap. The kind of lap even world champions struggle to achieve. And when engineers looked at the data, something didn't add up. Because in the fastest parts of the track, where every other car was losing performance, Mercedes was gaining. More speed, more stability, more energy. And that combination should not exist so clearly under the same regulations. 3 races, 3 pole positions, total control. That's not just dominance. That's a warning. Because if the FIA finds something unusual in how this car is working, this entire season could change overnight. Subscribe now, because what Mercedes did in that qualifying session might be much bigger than just one pole lap. Right after that qualifying session ended, the mood across the paddock changed completely. Not celebration. Not excitement. Suspicion. Because when one team dominates like that, engineers don't just accept it. They investigate it. Every team went back to the data immediately. Sector times. Speed traces. Energy deployment. And this is where things start to stand out. Mercedes wasn't just faster in one area. They were faster everywhere. Low-speed corners, high-speed sections, straights, entry, exit. There was no weak point. And that's the first thing that doesn't feel normal. Because in Formula One, performance always comes with a trade-off. If you gain top speed, you lose downforce. If you gain grip, you sacrifice efficiency. But Mercedes had everything at the same time. And that's what triggered the first real concern inside rival teams. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When engineers compared estimated telemetry, they noticed a pattern. A very specific one. Mercedes cars were arriving at key points on the track, with more available energy. Not once. Not twice. Every single lap. Which allowed them to do something the others couldn't. Push without limitation. No need to hold back. No need to save. Just full performance, from start to finish. And this is critical. Because under the current regulations, that shouldn't be possible. Energy is the limiting factor. Drivers are constantly managing it. Deploying carefully. Recovering where they can. Always balancing. But Mercedes didn't look like they were balancing anything. They looked unrestricted. And that's where the questions begin. Because if one team has found a way to manage energy better than everyone else, then they haven't just built a faster car. They've built a different system. And that changes the entire competitive order. But this wasn't just a one-session anomaly. This has been building since the start of the season. Race after race. Session after session. Mercedes has been on pole every single time. Front row lockouts. Consistent gaps. No real challenge. And when a pattern like that becomes clear, Formula One reacts. Not publicly at first, but internally. Quietly. Carefully. And that's exactly what the FIA has started doing. Looking deeper into the data. Trying to understand where this advantage is coming from. Because there is one specific part of the lap, one critical moment, where Mercedes looks completely untouchable. And once you see it, you understand why this situation is escalating so quickly. There is one corner in Suzuka, where everything becomes clear. One moment, where you can see the truth of a car. And that corner is 130R. Flat out. High speed. No margin for error. This is where drivers either commit or lift. And this is exactly where Mercedes looked different. Because every other car showed a limitation. Slight lift. Small correction. A drop in speed. Not dramatic, but visible. Because they had to manage energy. They had to protect the system. But Mercedes didn't. They went through that corner, flat. No hesitation. No instability. Nothing. And when the data was analyzed, the difference became undeniable. They carried more minimum speed than anyone else. Not by a tiny margin. By a gap that should not exist at this level. But here's the key detail. They did it without losing energy. No clipping. No drop in deployment. Which means one thing. They arrived at the fastest part of the track, with full power available. While everyone else was already running out. And that changes everything. Because if you gain speed there, you don't just gain in the corner. You gain all the way down the straight. Higher exit speed. Stronger acceleration. Better top speed. It's a chain reaction. And Mercedes was winning every part of that chain. But this is where the situation becomes even more serious. Because this isn't just about one corner. It's about how they arrived there. Lap after lap. Perfect energy distribution. Deploying when it matters. recovering where others can't, using every phase of the lap with precision, almost like the system is working one step ahead. And that level of efficiency is what the FIA is now trying to understand. Because under these regulations, energy is the biggest limitation. It defines performance. It controls how fast you can go. And yet, Mercedes doesn't seem limited at all. Which leads to a very uncomfortable question. Have they simply mastered the system? Or have they found something the rest of the grid hasn't even discovered yet? Because if it's the second option, then this is no longer just dominance. This is a breakthrough. And in Formula One, breakthroughs don't stay uncontested for long. But there is still one final piece. One detail that connects everything. The car. The system. The dominance. And once you see it, you understand why this investigation might go much further than anyone expects. And this is where everything comes together. Because what we're seeing from Mercedes is not just performance. It's control. Total control. Not just of speed, but of how that speed is created and sustained. Because when you break down the lap, corner by corner, phase by phase, you start to notice something almost unsettling. There are no wasted moments. No unnecessary corrections. No phases where the car looks out of balance. Everything is smooth. Everything is deliberate. And that points to something much deeper than just a fast setup. It points to a car that is operating inside a perfect window. All the time. And that is extremely rare in Formula One. Because most cars, even the fastest ones, have limitations. Narrow operating ranges. Sensitive behavior. Moments where the driver has to adapt, react, compromise. But Mercedes doesn't look like it's asking for compromise. It looks like it's giving the driver exactly what they need, at every moment. And that only happens when every system in the car is working together. Power unit. Energy recovery. Aerodynamics. Cooling. Chassis balance. All synchronized. All aligned. And according to the technical analysis, this isn't accidental. Mercedes has been developing this concept for years, designing the car around the energy system, not the other way around. Which means their advantage is not just power, it's integration. And that's what makes this so dangerous for the rest of the grid. Because you can copy a wing, you can upgrade a floor, but you cannot quickly replicate a concept that was built from the ground up. And this is exactly why the FIA is paying attention. Not because they have found something illegal, but because they are seeing something too effective, too consistent, too far ahead. 3 races, 3 poles, front row lockouts, a gap that is not closing, but growing. And when that happens in Formula One, history tells us what comes next. Scrutiny, questions, technical directives. Because the sport always protects competitive balance. But here's the final twist. Even if everything Mercedes is doing is completely legal, that doesn't mean it will remain untouched. Because when one team reaches this level of dominance, the rules don't just get checked. They get reinterpreted. And sometimes rewritten. So now, everything comes down to one question. Not whether Mercedes is fast. Not whether Antonelli delivered an incredible lap. But whether this level of control, this level of efficiency, is something the FIA will allow to continue unchanged. Because if it is, then this season might already be decided. And the rest of the grid isn't just behind. They're chasing something they don't fully understand yet. And now, we arrive at the part that nobody inside Formula One wants to say out loud. Because if you follow the pattern, if you connect every piece, this is no longer just about one qualifying session. This is about the direction of the entire championship. Because think about what we've seen so far. 3 races. 3 pole positions. Consistent front row lockouts. A performance gap that isn't shrinking, it's expanding. That doesn't happen in a stable grid. That happens when one team has found something the others simply don't have. And more importantly, don't understand yet. Because that's the real danger here. Not just that Mercedes is faster, but that their advantage is conceptual, built into the DNA of the car. And those kinds of advantages don't disappear with a small upgrade. They don't vanish after one race. They define eras. But here's where the situation becomes even more intense. Because inside Mercedes, there is still room to go faster. And that's the part that should worry everyone. Because what we saw in Japan might not be the limit. It might be the beginning. Antonelli is still adapting. Still learning. Still unlocking performance lap after lap. And yet, he's already delivering perfect sectors. Perfect execution. Against experienced drivers. Against proven champions. So what happens when he reaches full confidence? What happens when Mercedes refines this system even further? That's the question no one can answer right now. But the FIA understands the risk. Because if one team becomes too dominant, too far ahead, The competition stops being a fight. It becomes a formality. And Formula One cannot afford that. So the investigation? It's not just about legality. It's about control. Understanding where this advantage comes from. Understanding how far it can go. And deciding whether it needs to be limited. Because if they find nothing, if everything is within the rules, then the rest of the grid faces a much bigger problem. They are not chasing a faster lap. They are chasing a different philosophy. A different way of building a Formula One car. And those gaps, those kinds of gaps, take seasons to close, not races. So now, everything comes down to this final moment. The FIA reviews the data. The teams keep pushing. Mercedes keeps winning. And the gap keeps growing. Until one of two things happens. Either someone finds a way to catch them, or the sport itself steps in. And the real question is not which one will happen. The real question is, will it happen soon enough to stop this from becoming a season no one can change?